Hey, peace and love, family. Um, I want to do this video about us being Moorish Americans from a legal standpoint, and this is a direction I like to go in a lot of times because it breaks it down in ways that one, people can't argue with, and two, it doesn't really hurt people's feelings in the same way that you could if you were speaking with something like your mom or grandma that is maybe still in Christianity and not going to accept Noble Drew Ali as their prophet or something like that there, but still would be interested if you could, tell them, you know, these facts in history that, we're Moorish Americans, this is our bloodline and, you know, legally things have been stolen from us and, we're owed this and that, but you can't reach everybody from the temple perspective or from the divine side. Some people, that's what they're looking for, or it's easier to reach them from that perspective. But going in law, you know, is a way that's less offensive to some. And I like to go in with documents and give people reference points. So where you could easily look up Google with any phone, you know, these points in history, but then actually have the certified official documents, as my copies as well to be able to show people. And one of the first things is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and this is a cover page for it because it can be found in the Library of Congress. Y'all can easily look it up, but to become a country, you have to be recognized by another country. And that was what this Treaty of Peace and Friendship was all about in 1789. And the country, the North African country at the time, which was over the empire, Morocco, were the first ones to recognize the U.S. And that's just one of the facts that is undeniable, and it talks about in the treaty, intercourse between the Moors and the Americans, but it's important to understand that United States, George Washington, the first official president after the Revolution, not the actual first president, but the first one that they like to put on paper on the books, he actually wrote a letter to the Sultan of Morocco, basically apologizing for not keeping up with the payments, uh, because they had been paying the Moorish Empire, not just Morocco, but European countries had been paying tribute yearly to almost every Moorish country if they were attempting to do any type of trade in the Mediterranean, or any type of international trade, outside of the boundaries of wherever they were. So they owed big debts and he had great respect for the Moors. So in history, that was our last legal name before slavery was Moors. you know, and this is undeniable, and even the Europeans know this, but they try and keep that on the hush because of all the things that they did during the time of slavery. But it's so well documented, you know, in every country that, all it takes is a little bit of study and that reference point to know what to look for, and you can easily find it. And, you know, it's just another page of the treaty. And had another real famous case not too long after then, the Sundry Free Moors case. It was actually Moors that had been subject of the Emperor of Morocco. They wound up, while they were free here, they had been basically caught up in Africa by an African king, and he put them into slavery. Imagine that. And but they knew they were Moors, so that they actually appealed to the courts, that if they were to be tried, to not be tried under the Negro Act. So they wouldn't be treated as Negro, they would be treated as Moors. And they actually were granted this status. They were granted foreign status as being under the prince. And that was a landmark case back in the day, but there are so many things since then that have come along, that at this point, it's just another document. Like, it does show a lot, but there are so many in between and since then, and I can go almost, document for document if I wanted to, and go up until this very day, but we just gonna go on a few more, just to give people reference points of, where they can look at some of these historical things that have happened. Um, this is another one, the Code of Law, the United States of America Permanent General Charter. Um, and that goes into things of consular relations and intercourse with Moors, but there's also a filing that C.M. Bay did in the Library of Congress that was identical to that actual spot in the Code of Law, and it just kind of happened by happenstance. But there's a couple places that you can go and check, and they talk much about Moors and our status, and yeah, just moving along, the citizenship and expatriation. Uh, just another document going in on Moors. I love this one so much because it talks about um, not only Morocco, but it goes into the Moorish Empire, and it breaks it down, showing that they're separate entities. That Moors are not crazy out here saying, Morocco was just, you know, a country. It's the kingdom, but we're part of the empire. No, it's actually spoken about, in U.S. law and many other places, but it's just so well documented out here. But that people argue with us all the time, about these things. But if you were just do a little bit of study, you can easily find these things out for yourself. Um, this original filing that Noble Drew Ali did, affidavit, and just incorporating a Moor Science Temple, and it's another powerful one you can use as a reference point of just in the 19th century that's a little bit more up to date. Following people if you're helping them with a timeline going along, and there are many in between, including they have mayoral proclamations and even as recent as 2015, the state resolution of Texas or a Senate resolution 1014. You can look up going in on Moorish Americans, particularly of Houston, and I just want to wrap it up with when you go from this perspective of law, and showing people historical references, documents, things of that sort, they may be able to argue about some religious stance or something of that point, but there's no way from a legal perspective, that anyone will be able to rebut any of these things. And it's one of the things to help open my eyes, just finding all of these. And I hope it helps. And with that, I'm going to yield and say peace.